Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Storm, and today we're going to talk about parameters in methods. Now, last week we created new methods so that we could kind of jump around in our program wherever we needed to, whenever we needed to. But now we're going to talk about actually bringing some values, some variables from one method to another so that we can use those methods and return a new value back to the original, back to the main method, so that we can do things like math operations and whatnot. Okay. Um, so, yeah, let's just build a multiplication method, right? A method that will allow us to multiply two numbers together. So I'm going to do that before I even get started. I'm going to go down below my main method here and create a new method. And I want it to be a public method. I'm going to create a static method. Now, instead of void, because I don't want void, because I am going to be returning some value, instead of void, I want to type in the kind of data that I'm going to be returning to the main method, right? And so the type of data I want to return is an integer. So public static int, and I'm going to give it a name of mult, just because it's multiplication. It's a multiplication method. And again, we can name these whatever we want, right? Now, inside these parentheses, I need to bring in values from my main method, right? So x and y, because we are multiplying two numbers together, right? And I just chose x, y because they're just regular variables that are used often. And I can put whatever variables I want because we're just creating new ones. Let's do I and j. It doesn't really matter. All right. So now we're bringing in two variables from our main method, or whatever method calls the mult method, and we're going to do something with it. Now, before, when we created our variables, or we created our new methods, we didn't get this error, right? But we get this error now because it's saying, and if you look there, it says program mult int not all code paths return a value. When we are returning a data type from the method, meaning I'm saying if I was to change this to void, then that would go away because void isn't returning any data. But if we are returning a data from a method, then we need to have some return value. We need to type return and then return what it is we're returning, right? For this instance, it's actually pretty easy. We can just type return, and then we can do I times j. So we're going to return I times j, okay? So that's what this method is going to do. Every time we call the mult method, we're going to feed it two numbers, and we're going to have it return those two numbers multiplied by each other, right? Okay, easy to do. So let's actually build the program. Now that we have the method, let's flesh out the main method. Now we have the multiple method, the multiply method. Let's flesh out the main. So I'm going to create two variables here, int a and int b, because those are going to be the numbers our user types into the screen so that we can multiply them together. And I need a third, I need a third variable called answer because we want to put the answer onto the screen. All right, so I'm going to give them some instructions, console.write, and those instructions will be type the first number. Okay, and then we're going to parse this because, again, they're typing in a string. We want it to be numbers so we can actually have some math happen. So try parse, and the number we're going to parse is console.readline because we're bringing in whatever they're typing, and it's going to go out to A. Beautiful. And then we just do the same thing for B. So I'm going to copy this here and paste it down here, type the second number, and out is going to be B. So now we have A and B, right, typed by our user. Okay, and then what we're going to do here is answer is going to be equal to, well, how do we get our answer? Well, we could times A and B right here, and that would be kind of cheating. We want to actually use the method we created. So I'm going to type mult, I'm going to call that method, and I'm going to feed it the two numbers that we need, right? A, B. And then console.writeLine, and instead of, I'll just put answer. There we go. And then console.read line. Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about what we just did there. All right, so we have two variables up here, a and b, and we are putting values in those variables, basically allowing our user to put some value in those variables by typing it into the screen, right? Then down here, we have our answer equals mult. We are calling that mult method that we created down here. And we're feeding it a, and we're feeding it b. Now down here in the method, we are receiving a, and we're going to put it into the variable I, and we're receiving b, and we're going to put it into the variable j, right? And then we're going to multiply I times j, and we're going to return whatever the answer is, right? So once we get to this point, mult a, b, this will eventually turn into the answer of this multiplication operation that we're having happen down here. This is methods that can accept parameters and return a value are incredibly important, right? Because this allows us to tie our programs together in some way. If I ask for your name up here, and I want to be able to use your name in this next piece, in this next thing, then I just have your name come in to this new thing as a new variable, right? So I can have a name come in. Let's say yeah, we're not going to do that here. Let's run this first, and then let's see if it actually works, and then we'll do something new. First number 7 times 34, and it gives us our answer, 238. Perfect. So our method's working exactly the way it should. So let's try to simplify this a little bit more. Let's do another example just to see if this is actually working the way we want it to. I'm going to delete this here. Okay, so for this example, let's do string name, okay, console.writeLine. Let's do a write, enter your name. And then here we can do console.readLine. We want to actually have name equals console.readLine. And then we want to call a new method. We'll call this greetings, and we will pass it name. Now, greetings is red because there is no method called greetings, so let's go ahead and create that method. Static void greetings. Okay, now why is this a void method? Well, because we're not going to return anything back to the main method. All I want to do with this greetings method is take in name. Let's do string, let's create a new, and we'll call it, I don't know, first. Sure, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I don't want these variables can be the same, by the way. I just don't want them to be because it gets kind of confusing. So we're going to bring in the name, whatever's in name, we're going to send it to this new method, and then here on the screen we're going to say console.writeLine hello first. Okay. And then console.readLine. Okay, so this is an even simpler example of what we were doing. I probably should have done this first, but this is going to allow us to type in the name. Then we're going to call the greetings method. We're going to give it the name they typed. It's going to come in here as a string variable called first, and then we're going to use that variable to put the name on the screen, right? Now, again, you might be thinking, why are we doing it this way? This is super convoluted. You know, just write the name on the screen. I get it. In order to show you how powerful these things are, I would have to create a much bigger program so you can see why it's very helpful to have methods. I know there are easier ways to do what we're doing here, but it's good that you practice on smaller, lower scale programs. That way, when you get to doing the bigger stuff, you can actually understand why we would need something like this. All right. Anyway, I'm going to run this and see if it actually works. Enter your name, David. Hello, David. Hey, it works. Okay, great. So hopefully you can see by now that when we create a method that accepts values from the other method, and we can pass parameters to the new method, it increases our ability to, well, it just gives us more options when writing our programs. It allows us to do more cool things with our programs. So go ahead and practice with creating methods that accept values and return values, that accept parameters. Practice, practice, practice. That's the best thing you can do for programming. Think of new situations where you would want to create these kinds of methods and, do the quiz, do the assignment, blah, blah, blah. But I will see you next week when we start getting into even more advanced stuff and even more fun things. All right. Thank you. That was it for me, and I will see you next time.